Hello, everyone from Chelsea Fan TV. Welcome back to another episode of 3 Points Perspective. Another day, another early episode to kick off Wednesday. But all of the points that we make, to be honest with you, doesn't matter if it's Friday or Saturday, still going to be relevant. So, listen, guys, it's been a little while since we've recorded an episode, and the good times are hopefully coming back. Fingers crossed. 2 wins on the bounce, no clean sheets, but lots of goals and lots of talking points as well. Now, usually we only talk about three. We're still going to talk about three, but we might venture out a little bit just because there is quite a lot going on at Chelsea. I've got Nina up here on my right, or well, left on the screen. Charlie over here. Good to see you both. How's things?
Yeah, good, mate. Good.
Yeah.
Two wins on the bounce. Feels like things are a little bit better. But yeah, there's still a lot to play for. So yeah, can't complain too much. We did make hard work of it Monday night, but yeah, wins a win at the end of the day. And we haven't done much winning recently. So yeah, the more of those we can get, then the better it's going to be.
Absolutely. I mean, Nina, are you? I haven't seen you at the past few games, so it's nice to sort of jump on a video with you. Are you feeling? Do you know what I was going to say? You feeling the same as a lot of other Chelsea fans, but I feel like every Chelsea fan feels differently. There's not really a collective opinion. Everyone is a little bit different with regards to Poch, with regards to the way we're playing, the results. I mean, how do you take all this?
Yeah, look, I think us three have always sort of been very we've cut like Poch a lot of leeway, haven't we? I think for me, the Wolves game was the first time where I really sort of questioned him really like that. But, I didn't ever want to really say Poch out because I just think, nothing really changes. And not to say that just because we've got 2 wins, everything is suddenly okay. No, in fact, I do think there's still new lows around the corner, unfortunately. But I think, it's not so bad. This is kind of part of it. You lose, you win, you lose. And what I said to you, I can't remember what game it was about. I think can't remember what home game it was, that this is kind of the reality of a mid-table team. You lose, you draw, you win, but that's just how you go through the motions. And because that's what we are right now, you kind of just have to accept that this is where we are. I don't really like the fact that we're so unpredictable, where you just don't know what you're getting when you go into a game, because for me that just says we don't really have a kind of a game plan, if that makes sense. And I literally tweeted just before half time on Monday that it seems like we're freestyling most of the time, and that's not a comfortable way to play. It's not a comfortable style to have. It's not a system. It's just you go out on the pitch and sometimes something works, sometimes it doesn't, and that's where Pochettino can take some responsibility. So look, it's great. I'm not reading too much into it because it is 2 wins. Obviously, I think that we do well in the cup game, so Aston Villa was a good game for that reason. But then again, like Charlie said, Palace wasn't easy. It was a win, but we're going to have some tougher Premier League games coming up, and I do worry about those.
Yeah, I mean, Nina, do you take the Palace game with a pinch of salt because of the injuries that they've had, or are you still dissecting a lot of positives from that?
I can't lie to you. I'm not over the moon. I mean, I think that game should have been won regardless beforehand. I think Palace find themselves in even more of a pickle than we do, and that's hard. Like how many Premier League clubs can really say that? Considering we are a traditional top 6 side, we should be coming in and beating this Palace side. We saw what Arsenal did to them. I know we're completely different right now in terms of where we are at the moment as a club, but I still really do think that we should be coming into those games. They had no Elise, no Eze, no Mark Gehi. It should have really been easier, and it's just simply not good enough to not have a single shot on target in one half. So I do look at it with a bit of skepticism, but at least the goals we scored were nicer, so it kind of outweighed the performance in the end. But you just needed a result, didn't you? So you can't be too pessimistic about the performance, I suppose.
But I would say that if we played that badly or half as badly, I think we were just lucky that we played a crap team. If we played someone better and played like that in the first half, we're 2 or 3-0 down, the game's done. So I think it's lucky that we were playing Palace. Even if they had Eze and Elise in that game and we played like we did in the first half, then we would have been in big trouble. We probably potentially could have quite easily lost that game. So look, it's positive to win, of course, but I don't think we should just let a win cloud over the fact that there's still quite a lot of issues, particularly in that first half. Yes, second half we improved, but we got the goal early on, like a couple of minutes into the second half, and you thought, we might kick on here, and it didn't really happen. And obviously it was positive, I suppose. We kept going till the end and found a way to win, which is, we haven't always done that, and that's like a good learning experience for these younger players to dig in and grind a result out. Like, they're going to be better for it for doing that. But it was only Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be too down on it, because a win's a win, and ultimately it's results-based business and it's all about winning. But at the same time, we've got to be aware that if we played someone better, we would have been in big, big trouble. And if we go to City on Saturday and play like half as bad as we did in that first half against Palace, the game's finished. It's done. So positives, and I just don't understand how, I get there's going to be ups and downs with this team, but you sort of see how well you play against Villa for pretty much 90 minutes, and then the very next bit of football you play is absolutely shocking. It doesn't make sense to me. I get it, there's going to be ups and downs, but there shouldn't be that much of a discrepancy between performances. Like, for us, it's either shit or good. There's nothing in between.
Yeah. Can I just add to that? It's not sustainable to play a good first half or a good second half every single game. There's very few games where maybe Villa, maybe Arsenal for 75 minutes, maybe Man City, but there aren't any other games that I can think of off the top of my head where we have played a full 90 that has been good, that has been consistent, that has been, that sort of game plan that we set out is sort of seen through throughout the whole game. It's always a good first half and a bad second, or vice versa. And unfortunately, that doesn't compete you in the league, and that's why we are where we are. You cannot compete for anything higher if you continuously play like that.
I mean, the way I look at Palace, I know I'm positive, but actually, I think that we need to look past just the way Chelsea played. I mean, you've got to look at the way that they play. And with Aston Villa, they came out, they tried to play aggressive, open football. It didn't work very well. We took control of that. We benefited from that. Palace, they didn't give us a sniff. They didn't try and open up gaps. We had to create those gaps, and then they would punish us on the counter like they did with the first goal. Well, it wasn't really a counter, but you know what I mean. So I think that it's definitely true that we didn't have our best first half. But I've seen great Chelsea teams. I've seen league-winning title teams have games like that. At Selhurst, Man City in the past have struggled to score a goal, albeit they've had a few shots. But the point still stands. When a team sits back and pretty much isn't interested in going out to win the game, judging by the tactics, you're not looking to go out and press, etc. You might try and nick a cheeky goal. I don't really think it's as bad as people say. We had the possession, we didn't do too much with it. But if Palace would have pressed, we would have seen a similar game to Aston Villa, because we benefit from that. And we know
every team plays like that. That's the thing, though. Very few teams actually come out and have a go. You probably count them on one hand, the teams that will do that. Most of the games are going to be against teams that are going to sit deep. Look, we will get better at it, but I think Pochettino has still got to improve tactically about how he approaches games against teams that are going to sit deep, those low block sides, because we do still struggle against them. Yeah, okay, we got, I don't want to say we got away with it, because I don't think Palace particularly outplayed us, but we found a way to get it done in the end, and it kind of, that's a good thing. But it kind of felt like a bit Man United-esque this season in terms of played kind of crap, but still find a way to win. And let's be real, look, the second half was better, but he weren't great. And look, I've always said it's about winning, but it's got to be sustainable as well. You're not going to keep winning games in the last minute. And you're also not going to play well for an entire 90 minutes. You're definitely not. But you can't, as Nina said, you can't have it where, you're awful for 145 minutes and then you're all right for the second one. Because if you're bad for that large amount of time in a game, you're unlikely to get anything out of it. Look, in every game, you're going to have maybe 10, 15, maybe even 20-minute spells where you're bang up against it. but you can't afford to have whole halves or 60 minutes worth of games where you're just not at it, because you're not going to pick up the points. And that's the one thing we need to improve on is, not having 45 minutes or 15, 20 minutes here and there. We need to try and find it where we're competitive and competing in games for 65, 70 minutes. And we're still waiting to find that.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a valid point. I mean, the way I look at it is, even if that is the case, even if most teams don't go out and press, and I would say that more teams press these days than in the past. I would say that's becoming a more regular theme, and I think Palace were a prime example of that a few years ago with Vieira. They actually did press, and Hodgson's kind of gone back to route one. Getting the ball up the field and trying to just be solid defensively. But we'll move on. Now, this is a really weird one, because there was a lot of reports coming out not long ago saying that Chelsea would need to generate at least £100 million of player sales, pure profit, if I'm not wrong. So these were all going to be Chelsea youth players who were developed from the academy: Broha, Lewis Hall, Ian Matson, Chalobah, Gallagher, players like that, to generate enough cash to survive FFP, because we managed to be okay so far, but a lot of rumours going around. But then Ben Jacobs has come out with a report saying that we're actually able to spend at least 200 million in the summer, maybe more, before player sales. So really contrasting reports from Ben Jacobs compared to other journalists and other reports that I've read. Now, you've got to take it with a pinch of salt, because at the end of the day, you've got all these stories flying around. You just don't know who's right. At the end of the day, it could be for clicks. It could be anything. I really don't know. But if this is true, does that actually tell you that our owners are a lot smarter than we thought? They planned a lot better than we thought, and we're actually in a much better situation to level up as a football club than originally presumed?
I don't know. I'm not going to pretend that I know the ins and outs of football finance, because it's so complicated. But I'd imagine, because it's obviously done over a 3-year period, this summer coming up could well be it's either in the first year of the new 3-year period. But I think obviously the raising of the money, I think, is to comply with the end of the 3-year period, what's coming up, or something along those lines. Look, it's not. I don't think the financial situation is perhaps as bad as some people or some reports have potentially made out. But I think it is clear that Chelsea do need to raise some funds to make sure they completely comply with FFP regulations. I think a lot of teams are sailing pretty close to the wind with that one. I think that's probably a large reason why not a lot of money was spent in general across the Premier League in the January window. I think a lot of teams are, feeling it in that regard, and the fact that the Premier League seems to be coming down a lot tougher on it than perhaps they have done in recent years is perhaps another contributing factor. But look, we know there's money there to spend. You can criticise the owners all you want for certain things, and rightfully so. But I think in terms of finances and their numbers and things like that, I'd be very surprised if they were to be in breach or to get things wrong on that account, because these guys have made a lot of money, and you don't do that by being stupid or not understanding numbers and not understanding how finances work. I mean, one thing they can do, I'd probably say it is that, but all these amortizing contracts over long periods of times, etc., that is going to require us to. We need European football and that European football money to help comply with that. Otherwise, you're going to be in a situation where we are going to have to start selling quite a few players to make up for the fact that we're not going to get that money from European football. So, the spending is on a proviso that we do bring in that revenue from obviously, from European football. And people have a go at sort of the extra, I don't want to say extracurricular activities, but you know what I mean? Like the sponsorship stuff that we do. All this stuff happened under Roman, but because of the fact that we've got, a small stadium compared to our rivals, we miss out on a lot of match day revenue compared to Arsenal, Tottenham, City, Man United, all these clubs that have got bigger stadiums than us. We're missing out on a lot of money on a match day. So
I think Man United are at what 126 million. Tottenham around the same mark. We're just over 80 million.
Yeah, we're missing out on a lot of money. So if we have to have film promo things there, that's bringing some money in. Then so be it, because the money's got to come in from somewhere. And I'd rather, if it means doing shit like that, rather than having to potentially sell someone. I'm not saying it's the same thing, but if it can contribute to maybe having to sell a player less or something along those lines, then I think it's kind of a fair trade-off. But look, there's definitely money to spend. I think we know there's money to spend. But yeah, we are going to have to raise some money. And unfortunately, the players that are going to fall at the wayside are those academy players, because it does go as pure profit on the books, because you haven't had to pay for them. So all that money will then go on the balance sheet, and it obviously makes the books look a lot better. So yeah, in terms of selling players, it is going to be your likes of your Chalobahs, your Martsons, your Broyers, etc. That are going to have to make way, because those are our most sellable assets right now. I think in terms of players that we've signed recently, you're not really going to. I'd be shocked on any of them. We'd get a return on, like we'd actually make money back on them if we sold them in the summer. I don't mean the ones that have literally just arrived last summer, but I'm talking about maybe last January or a couple of summers ago. We're not making a return on investment on any of those players.
Yeah, I mean, we took a massive risk with the long contracts and dishing out pretty big wages for a lot of quote unquote unproven players. I mean, if I was just to select a few incomings under Todd Boehly and just look at the magnitude of the contracts as well. I mean, let's just say that a player's on a contract that's worth, I don't know, 5 million over 5 years. We're looking at 25 million. But when you've got 6 year, 7 year, even 8 year contracts in some cases, that obviously increases so much. So you've got a high risk. If this player doesn't work out, you can't move them on unless you take a serious hit financially in terms of the transfer fee, which obviously Clear Lake and Todd Boehly, Igbali, they don't want to do that. Cucurella, we signed him on a 6-year deal. Sterling, 5-year contract. Chukwuemeka, 6 years. Fofana, 7 years. Haven't even seen him play a full season, half a season. Badia Shield, 7.5 years. Fofana, 6-year contract. I mean, Mudryk on an 8.5-year deal, Madueke Gusto on a 7.5-year deal, and Fernandez on that 8.5-year deal as well. So we have really put our eggs in one basket from the potential aspect. But then when you look at some of the great players, we don't talk so much about the players that maybe don't perform. Gusto. I think Madueke will come good as well. Enzo Fernandez, players like that. I think it's fantastic that we've pinned them down, and we've got that security. And I think that has a massive effect on the players, because what that forces them to do, and I think we've seen it with Enzo Fernandez,
Just commit.
Just dig deep. You can't get out. You cannot get an easy move. It's just
jail, mate.
Well, I don't want to say it like that, but what it does is it forces these footballers to grow up. Pull your laces up and start performing at the end of the day. Because if you don't perform, then you won't play, and you're certainly not getting a move unless someone's willing to pull up 150 million quid in some players' cases. So that's the positives. But then you've got players like Mudryk and other players as well that we clearly overpaid for, and we're going to struggle to move them on as well.
I think we overpaid for the vast majority of the signings we made under Clear Lake. I think Malo Gusto we definitely didn't overpay for. Cole Palmer, I would say no. Enzo was a release clause, so like that we had to pay if we wanted him. But the rest of them, I think we have pretty much, give or take, maybe a couple, maybe Nicholas Jackson perhaps not overpaid for, maybe Nkunku as well, but that was a release clause also. Pretty much all the signings I think we've massively overpaid for, and that's just the reality of the situation. We have massively overpaid for these players, but if they come good, then no one will say anything about that. But if they don't, then the whole thing is going to look pretty shit. But yeah, we have overpaid. We can't deny it. We've overpaid for the vast majority of these players, and we're paying for potential, not what they can do right now.
Yeah.
Can't
what
wait
do you think about it, Nina?
Can't wait for all the new memes that are going to come through and stuff. We are just always going to be in the headlines one way or another. But yeah, look, I can't really offer a financial, educated opinion, but I do agree on the fact that I still do think that a lot of these signings were a gamble in terms of you've invested a lot of money for something that you don't know will come good. You know, you think, or you've seen potential, you've seen signs, but it's not a guarantee, and it is almost impossible that every single one of these will prosper. So, like you say, Alex, it might come down to selling some of those, or Charlie, whoever said that, so selling some of the January signings from last year in summer, but I think it's more of a fact that, like, we celebrated Todd Bowley finding the loophole last year in January because, you know, he was sort of put under scrutiny, but then he came out kind of in the clear. And like Charlie said, I think maybe on a footballing level, you can say he doesn't really understand how things work on the pitch, but, you know, he is a businessman for a reason. He must know his stuff. So you kind of just trust him on that sort of level. But yeah, I mean, it sounds great. If it's true, then let's go spend some more money. But yeah, can't really say more than that, to be honest.
Yeah, it's certainly a unique situation. I'll be the first to say I was loving it when I saw every single day.
Oh yeah, of course.
We were all loving it. Don't get me wrong, we were all loving it. It was dropping. We had like 8 signings by like first week of Jan.
Oh, unbelievable. But we didn't realize at that time we were actually shooting ourselves in the foot.
No.
We were making life harder for ourselves by bringing in all those players straight away.
Even the rival fans were excited, and now I have people telling me, "Oh, we told you this would happen. We told you can't just go buy all these young players, and they're gonna." Oh no, you weren't. You were so jealous about it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's quite sad, really. The more I think about it, we've fallen so far. But I mean, I do believe things can get better. I will say that. I said that against Fulham, not Fulham, Palace. I said that against Palace, and you know, I stand by that. I do think that, you know, we cause ourselves so many issues early on that I think when things really come into fruition, I think it would be quite a surprise to a lot of people. You know, and when you actually read out the squad that played yesterday, none of those players have been at Chelsea for over 2 years, except for Thiago Silva and Ben Chilwell. That's it. So I struggle to understand where people expect to see team chemistry and, you know, link up play and serious understanding when, you know, I don't know if I'm a right back. I don't know what it's like to play with my centre back. I don't know what it's like to play with my goalkeeper, my wingers, my midfielders. I have no player to look at and say, "Oh, I know your game," and that's all over the pitch, except for Chilwell and Silva, as I alluded to earlier. So yeah, that's an interesting one. But listen, I'm just gonna cut out for a brief second. All right. If you guys don't already know, the channel is sponsored by Match Bingo. Okay. Match Bingo is where you can see every goal, save, throw in, corner, or substitution, and you can win cash prizes. Now, you can try it with 10 free cards a month. They cover 99% of Premier League games and Championship games on the app. It's only £2 a card. And every card that you purchase supports the Stroke Association. So it's a nice little touch in there as well. I do say this every video, but I will allude it again. Please play responsibly. Don't be silly. Have a bit of fun, but, you know, don't go over the top. Terms and conditions apply. You must be 18 or over to play. Okay. All right, guys, let's move on to the next topic. So, interesting one with the FFP situation. I mean, at the end of the day, we're going to find out. Some people think we're absolutely fucked. Some people think we're okay. Ultimately, I don't have a clue, but I'm just reading these reports. Now, what I do know is that Pochettino loves Conor Gallagher. And yes, he loves Gallagher. And Gallagher, fair play to the man. Because I will say this, Nina, I think you saw me on the telly. I have never celebrated so hard in
Sassy and
my
I
life. Sorry?
Mate, ripped your jacket and sacrificed your Coke.
Did you
Oh,
sacrifice
mate.
the coat?
Yeah, it went
I didn't have
everywhere,
a
didn't
Coke.
it?
I had a bottle of water.
Oh, it was the water, yeah.
And obviously at the football, they don't let you keep the lid
Yeah,
on.
the
You've got to take the lid on. And I went, it's about half full. I went, fuck it. I just threw it in. It was brilliant. And then I sprinted down where I was literally, I could have held Disassi when he jumped. I was so close to him. And someone behind me was obviously tugging on my jacket. And, I've gone back up to my seat and there's fluff everywhere. And I'm like, where the hell is this coming from? And people have tapped me on the back and said, it's you, mate. Someone's ripped your jacket. I was like, no. So to be honest with you, I was really tired. I personally didn't pay for that jacket. That was a family member who passed away. It just
That's
got
even worse.
But I mean, it's like a 600 quid jacket. So, and I wear that all the time because it's really cold.
Mate.
I just need to what?
Sew it up.
Yeah, but I can't sew, Charlie.
You would have collected all the fluff into the pocket.
I mean, I'm definitely going to give my mum a call after this and see if she.
It's a good story to tell, though. So it's a great story. How I ripped up my £600 jacket.
It's all thanks to Conor Gallagher. So thank you, Conor.
So he should, maybe when he gets a new contract, he should pay for your replacement.
God, Nina, stop making me laugh.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, I mean, let's talk about Gallagher. What do you think about him? And is it right for Pochettino to be pushing as hard as he is in private for Gallagher to get a new deal?
I think so, mate. We discussed this before. Like, we know the manager wants him to stay. Connor said that he wants to stay. It's the most, no one wants him to leave other than potentially, obviously, the owners. It shouldn't be a difficult thing to sort out. When you're a manager at a football club, if one of your most important players, whether fans agree or disagree on Gallagher's ability, right now, for Pochettino and for this Chelsea team, he is one of the most important players. And of course, a manager is going to push for one of his most important players, one of his most trusted players, to be offered a new contract and for him to stay. Ultimately, I don't know how much bearing that will have on the ultimate decision in the end, but it's not going to do any harm, I wouldn't have thought. And I do think if Gallagher were to leave, it would reflect very badly on this ownership. We've already had a situation with Mason Mount leaving. Obviously, right now, so far that's looking like, we don't really miss him. And it's not about missing him or not. It's just about the principle of the situation. We've been through that with Mason Mount. We've had it before with Rudiger and Christensen under previous ownership, not sorting contracts out and allowing quality players to leave on a free. And I just don't think we need to learn from our mistakes. We can't go down this road again and allow another player to leave on a free or to sort of seemingly be forced out of the club potentially because the owners want to make some profit or, he's not part of their plans going forward or whatever it might be. I think with Gallagher, for me, it's quite simple. We know what he brings. We know he gives 150% every time he's on the pitch. But if he's going to be playing in that sort of number 10 position, when you've got the likes of Cole Palmer and Kunku who are obviously better players in that position, if he can score goals like he did against Palace, like he did when he was on loan at Palace, if he can do that on a regular to semi-regular basis, then his importance shoots right up for this team and for the club. We obviously, as I said, we know the tenacity he brings, but to be starting on a regular basis, you need more than just that tenacity. But if he can actually help in the final third with his production, then things massively change. You can't play where Gallagher's played for the vast majority of this season and get your first Premier League goal in mid-February. You just can't do that at a club like Chelsea. The output, we need more output from him. So if he's going to be a regular starter, for me, what he brings is not quite enough. But if he can add goals on a more regular basis, then yeah, that massively changes the picture. But in terms of him staying, for me, whether he's a regular starter or not, he loves this team. He epitomises what Chelsea are right now. He gets what it means to play for the football club. And there's a place for players like that in the squad. Whether he starts every week or not is irrelevant. Right now, he's obviously making it very hard for him to be dropped, the performances he's putting in. But there's absolutely a space for him in the squad. He loves this club, and he's the sort of person that's not going to kick up a fuss, if he's like getting bench minutes or rotation minutes or whatever. So on all levels, maybe other than a financial level, it makes total sense to offer him a new contract. So I'd like to think we'd sort this one out, even if we offer him a new deal and they look to sell him in the summer or in a couple of years' time or whatever, then fine. But right now, like with 1 year left on a contract in the summer, like the amount of money you're going to get for him is dwindling. Let's make no mistake about it. If Gallagher was foreign, if he was called like Galladino or something, but he'd be like 70, 80 million pound player. That's just reality, but it's not attractive because he's English and he's from Cobham. Like that's the reality. Like honestly, mate, if this guy wasn't from the academy, right, and he was performing how he was right now, do you really think there's conversations about a new contract still going on? Like, he signed a new deal if he's like French or he's German or whatever he is. Like I'm not saying it's because he's English, but like it's because he represents the pure profit on the books. If we paid for him a few years ago, then obviously, you know, for me, he would have signed a new contract by now.
Yeah. I also don't really like the fact that Pochettino is essentially trying to build the team around Gallagher. And I think at some point down the line, that's just going to, not prove better for the long run, because don't get me wrong, I think he's been brilliant. I don't want to discredit any of his performances, you know, how he has performed consistently while other players have sort of been trying to fit in and have sort of been working out like where they fit in the system. Gallagher's been performing, yes, but now that we have Nkunku back and fit, I think I want to see a case where Nkunku plays in the 10. I've been saying this for the longest time. I don't fancy him playing up top. Not that he's bad there, not that he can't finish, but I don't think that Gallagher can create for him or provide the service that Nkunku would if it was vice versa with another striker up front, because that's inhibiting his game, one. And two, we brought in Nkunku to be a creator. At the time when the deal was arranged, if you guys remember, it was months before he actually arrived in the summer. It was already prearranged because Chelsea had no creators in the team, not a single one. And we know our biggest problem was sort of creating goals, scoring too, but nobody really in the team to create. So now that we have one, we're not using him to his strengths. I thought Palmer would play there when he arrived. Okay, fair enough. He's amazing on the wing. Keep him there. Don't play him as the false 9 either. But I'd like to see a situation where Nkunku plays in the 10, Palmer's on the wing, and we have an actual striker up front, which obviously in this case is only one. You can put Jackson, and then you can interchange whoever you put on the left-hand side. But that's just so much more creative outlet. I think if you're coming up against low blocks, that's more effective than having someone like Gallagher in the 10, because I think he will play a safer pass than Nkunku might in that role. And, you know, we saw it in pre-season. Nkunku's so good at breaking that up. He's so good at making a sort of surprise pass, whether it be over the defensive line or just not sideways. And I really just want to see that. I think because Poch loves Gallagher so much and favours him there, he won't actually allow for that experiment. And because we are short for strikers, he'd rather put Nkunku up top. And I just think that that's really going to limit our game. And I think it's no coincidence that Nkunku has been so isolated in the last couple games up there, you know, particularly against Wolves. I thought against Palace too when he came on. Yeah, maybe had a moment, but I just don't think it's going to work in the long run. And I think, you know, if we do offer him a contract, fine. But I think that will be to make him a regular starter, make him potentially the backbone or the spine in Pochettino's eyes of this team. And I don't think I'm okay with that.
I've got no problem with him being a regular starter, providing he delivers like he has done in the last couple of games. Like if you deserve, if you prove that, you know, your output's there and your performance level is there, then I don't have an issue with it. I get the point that obviously, you know, he's playing in a position where you would expect an Nkunku to play, who obviously is a natural kind of much more attack-minded player, or a Cole Palmer, for example. You know, they're what you'd call like proper number 10s. Gallagher isn't really a number 10. He's just kind of finding himself playing there. But if he continues to play how he has the last couple of games for the majority of games, then like it's hard to make a point against him starting if he's regularly helping the team to win. I don't agree with the team necessarily being built around him. Look, it was clear that Poch likes him and he's obviously a favourite. I get that. But I don't think in the long run that the team is going to be built around Conor Gallagher. I don't think you'll look at the spine in a few years to come of Chelsea and think that Gallagher's going to be a main part of it. You'd look at maybe could be Petrovic or someone else, and you look at maybe Colwell, Enzo, Caicedo, and Nkunku, and then whoever the striker is that we bring in would be like kind of the spine of the team. I don't think Gallagher necessarily would be fitting into that, in my opinion. I think he can obviously be a good squad player. But look, as I said, if the numbers are there and the output's there and he's helping the team to win and he's an important part of that, then as much as I would rather Nkunku played there because obviously his skill set and he's a better footballer, it is quite hard to argue against Gallagher playing whilst he's playing the way he is, particularly in the last couple of matches. If he were to continue that, then it's a good problem to have. It's nice to have selection headaches and multiple options that can make an impact at the top end of the pitch. It is nice to have that.
Yeah, I think as well when we do have a proper number 9, a solidified striker, I think Poch's hand will be forced because you can't really tell if Poch wants to do it or not. He doesn't have a proper striker to work with. Cole Palmer played as a false 9 for crying out loud against Palace, and I was looking at it and I was thinking, it's fine. I think it helps the team. I think Pochettino's okay to do that. I don't think it's necessarily bad. But for Cole Palmer specifically, you're not going to get the best out of him. And like Nina said as well, with Nkunku, it would be nice to see him playing in his natural position. But Pochettino didn't want to do this from the beginning. He didn't do this in pre-season. When everyone was fit, you had Jackson playing, you had Nkunku playing. Gallagher would have played, but as a pivot. He would have been playing in the Enzo role. He wasn't as far up as he is now. And then you had Chukwuemeka in the 10, who I still think, by the way, is up there with
Cole Carney, Alex, don't you?
I do as well. He's exceptional. He's a very good player. That's why it irritates me that since the game against Liverpool where he came on, all right, we were terrible, but he came on and he looked half decent. He got the assist for the Nkunku goal. The guy's not kicked a ball in the 3 matches since then. Didn't play a minute against Wolves. Didn't play against Villa in the Cup. And didn't play against Palace either. And that's the one thing that's annoying when you invest money in these young players, right? But
where do you play him? Where do you play him?
Well, I mean, look, you could play him, where Gallagher plays. I know obviously Gallagher's doing better than Carney right now, but the fact, I'm not saying that maybe Chukwuemeka should be starting on a regular basis, but you can't tell me that he shouldn't be getting minutes.
He will.
No, I
minutes.
don't.
He will.
He should be getting minutes every week. If you invest in these players and you're going to want to develop them, they're not going to develop by sitting on the bench playing no minutes.
Yeah, but that is the problem as well, though. I think that is still a problem because he's still trying to find a regular sort of starting 11, isn't he? He's still trying to find how to fit these players in. And, I think the fact that a lot of them now are sort of coming back from injury slowly, there's depth in those places, and that's really good. But I think it's really good for a team that has sort of worked out who those regular players are, and then you kind of work the other players that are coming back from injury into, sort of those B positions where when they come on to replace a certain player, they don't take out the quality of the game, but we don't have that because we're not that far into this project. So essentially what you're doing is I think you're breaking up the chemistry that you're trying to build already, and because so much is going on and so much is changing all the time, the players just won't really learn how to play alongside each other. I just don't think we're that far into this where we can afford to do that so often. But I do agree with you, I get it, but then again it's you kind of knew that this would be a problem somewhere down the line, because you can equally argue Lavia. When Lavia's back and fit, you got to play him somewhere too.
It's good options to have, but I think this is the one major drawback for me of this recruitment policy, is that there's just a complete bottleneck of players, all of the same age, that all need minutes to develop and progress their careers and progress as players, and they're simply not going to get them. Some of them aren't going to play hardly any minutes at all, and their value is just going to depreciate. And then, others will play a lot more and they'll develop a lot quicker. And this is the problem. The age profile of the squad is so imbalanced. It's so imbalanced. And when you buy players all of the same age, young, inexperienced, needing minutes to develop, and they're all competing with each other for those minutes, that's going to lead to a bottleneck situation, and it could lead to big problems. So, like for me, there's no surprise that I think in the summer, 2, 3, maybe at least 2 or 3 of these players that we signed last January, or not this January, just gone, the previous January, and maybe the previous summer, will be moved on. I'll be honest, mate. I'll be surprised if I think one of Mudryk or Madueke won't be at Chelsea next season, whether they go out on loan or whether they're sold. I can't see it, because these guys just aren't getting the minutes to develop. But
they're not proving that they deserve the minutes consistently. I mean, Mudryk had a stint, don't get me wrong.
But he was just suddenly found himself out the team. Like when he had that run of games around December time, he was doing well. He was chipped in with a few goals. He was getting a couple of assists. He was looking dangerous. And then suddenly, I don't know what happened. He just dropped out the team, and he can't seem to get any minutes now. I don't think he's kicked a ball for us. Well, not since the Wolves game. So the last 2 games, he's been an unused sub as well.
Well, the last game I remember seeing Mudryk, I don't know if he played against Wolves. I think he came off the bench. He started against Middlesbrough in the 6-1 win. And the thing about Mudryk is when the team is playing horrific football, he can pull out some good individual moments. When the team plays well, he doesn't come up to that standard. And don't get me wrong, we haven't had many games where you can say, wow, the team was great. But the 6-1 win against Middlesbrough was a great example of a player who just needs more time, and you can say whatever you want.
Alone then. They should look to
why did they reject a loan? They rejected a loan, didn't they, for him?
Well, there was an approach, but
their method with this might just be that we need to get the whole squad used to each other, and albeit that we're running down their contracts and maybe wasting valuable years in terms of not having players playing regularly. But if everyone gets used to each other, the whole squad comes together, they know what it is to be at Chelsea, even if they're not playing for Chelsea in that sense. Maybe that's the idea behind it. But I mean, from an individual player standpoint, I do get it. I don't think that Madueke will go on loan, to be honest with you. I think that Madueke has enough to play minutes in this Chelsea team, especially if we have Europa League or Conference League. I think Madueke
that will make a big difference when there's more games, because those shit group stage matches in Europa League or Conference League or whatever it's going to be next season. Like that's definitely an opportunity to rotate and more minutes, etc. So that will make it. That will give more opportunities and more football for players. I mean, I think right now the squad, it is tough when you're playing once a week to give everyone enough minutes. But I do still think it's a valid point at some point down the line that the way the squad's been put together and the age profiles all being the same and the players all needing minutes to help develop and improve, a lot of these guys are just going to fall by the wayside. And that, unfortunately, is a downside of the recruitment policy.
Yeah, absolutely. But I guess only time will tell. Listen, guys, we don't have too long to touch on Man City, but we'll briefly just give our 2 cents. I mean, the way I look at it is I remember when Poch was at Tottenham, and Tottenham, especially towards the latter days, they really used to give Man City a game. Pochettino done pretty well against Man City. We saw it in the Champions League. We saw it in a couple of Premier League games as well. Even if it wasn't a win, I think for Tottenham to get a draw against Man City is still relatively impressive considering how good they've been. Now, our standard is higher, obviously. But, I have to look at this and say, I'm optimistic, I know people say that for some reason I'm too positive, but Charlie, you remember when we were standing next to each other in Selhurst Park and Alfie Gilchrist whips in the ball and I said, Charlie, mate, I feel it. I feel the winner. I feel it. I really feel it. And I've got a good feeling. I really do. I have a good feeling. Wilshire's injured. Bernardo Silva's injured. Gvardiol's injured. I know Haaland is obviously back. But as far as I'm concerned, if you can just keep Haaland out of the game, then you're okay. That's the real problem. But ultimately, we can see goals anyway, and we can still score goals. So this is going to be a high-scoring game if anything comes about. 4-4 at Stamford Bridge. I don't think it's going to be quite so good at the end. But I'm predicting maybe a high scoring draw or even a win for Chelsea. You know, I'm going to go 2-2. That's going to be my official prediction. I think that we've got some momentum now. You know, you can say what you want about the way we've played against Palace. I believe that sometimes in football it's about having your back against the wall. Right now, Poch is there. And Man City haven't been their best this season. You know, they're kicking into gear, but, you know, ultimately they are going to concede chances. And if we've got players like Nkunku, players like Cole Palmer, I think we can take those chances.
Look, I think I don't want to say it's a free hit because we're not like some sort of bottom of the table side. Go in there and like, you know, just go and enjoy it. And if you can get something, great. I think it's going to be a tough task. What I want more than anything, right? Look, there's no shame in losing at Man City away. They're arguably the best team in the world. Most teams are going to lose against them. What I want to see is actual application and turning up and putting in a respectable performance. Like the last big away game we had, Liverpool, everyone shit themselves and didn't turn up, and we were an absolute disgrace. If we can, I just want to see application. I want to see a good level of performance. And do you know what? If we come up short and we lose 2 or 3-1, but we've competed well and we've shown there's something to be positive about, then you can be kind of reasonably okay with that and see that there are signs going forward and we just lost out to the better side and we did our best. But if we have a similar repeat of the Liverpool game and we just don't turn up, tactics are all over the place, everyone's crap, then that's going to be a massive problem. I don't have an issue with losing. It's the way that you lose matches that is the big problem. It's going to be really tough. De Bruyne is in exceptional form. Haaland's back. Rodri's is there. Obviously, yeah, Jack Grealish is out injured. He hasn't been playing much this season. Bernardo Silva took a knock on his ankle in the Champions League last night. Don't know whether he's going to be fit or not. Yes, Vardiol's out, but they've got so much depth and so much quality. Like, ultimately, for me, mate, I just think, look, we'll get opportunities, but the problem is, how many can we keep out the other end? I don't think we'll have a problem. I don't think it will be a surprise if we score. I suspect we might get 1, maybe 2, because Man City give you opportunities. But the problem is the relentless volume of chances that they create at the other end and how ruthless they are in front of goal. Like, we don't keep clean sheets. And so if we're defensively a little bit off it or just a little bit off it all over the pitch, we could quite easily ship 3 or 4. So for me, mate, whilst I think we can score, I just don't think we've got it in us to keep them out or to you know, make sure that they concede less goals than us. I think we'll probably lose. I'll be honest, mate. I think we'll lose 3-1.
Oh, I'm glad you said that in the end because I thought I should have gone first because you guys could have ended it on a positive. But I'm glad you said that. I told you guys at the start and I stick to my guns. I think we lose against Man City. But like you said, it's not going to be such a big surprise. The table at the top right now is wide open. Man City need goals. They need a high scoring game as well for a goal difference. And I think we'll be in trouble at the Etihad.
Short and to the point. Fair enough. Well, listen, guys, thank you for watching. If you have been watching for the whole 48 minutes, a really good episode where actually there's not an awful lot of news per se to come off. But I mean, the news that we do have is still quite interesting. So thanks for watching if you have. If you agree or disagree with anything myself, Charlie, or Nina has said, let us know in the comments. It's always interesting to know your thoughts and know if you're if you're with us or against us in terms of our opinions. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Give us a thumbs up if you want to. And listen, guys, we will see you in the next video. But whatever happens, we may not be positive. We may think it might be a tougher against Man City. It's going to be a good game. That's what I do think. I think it's going to be an entertaining game. But we'll have to wait and see. But all the best, guys, and up the Chelsea.